The horse is 26 years old. His name is Frank. He's a black Belgian, weighs 1,900 pounds, and at 5:30 this morning, he was already in harness, pulling a single-bottom plow through the wet spring soil of a 50-acre Amish farm in Holmes County, Ohio. He'll be in that harness until 10. He'll get a break at noon. He'll go back out in the afternoon. Tomorrow he'll do it again. He's been doing it for 23 years. His feed bucket holds 3 things. There's grass from the pasture behind the barn, which he grazes on for most of the day when he isn't working. There's hay from the barn loft, which the family put up themselves last August. And there's a scoop of plain oats, given to him only when he's been working hard. There is one more thing in that barn that the horse uses every single day. I'll show you what it is at the end of this video, because once you understand the 3 things in the bucket, the 4th thing makes sense in a way it wouldn't right now. For the rest of this, you can call the system 3 things, because that is how the Amish think about it. The thing I am holding back is not feed. It is something else. What is not in that bucket, what has never been in that bucket, is everything you walked past in the feed aisle at Tractor Supply on Saturday. No vitamin packs, no senior formula, no glucosamine, no joint blend, no coat conditioner, no hoof builder, no mood balancer. The average American horse owner spends between $300 and $600 a month feeding a horse that doesn't work nearly as hard as Frank does, doesn't live nearly as long as Frank will, and breaks down years before Frank's body even thinks about slowing down. The Amish family that owns Frank spends in real cash maybe $40 a month. The oats are bought. The hay they grew, the grass is free, the math is brutal, and it had been the same for 200 years. This is not an accident. There is a feed industry in this country that takes in something close to $10 billion a year. Commercial concentrates, senior formulas, performance blends, vitamin and mineral supplements, joint support, hoof support, skin and coat, calming pellets. The shelves at any Tractor Supply store from Pennsylvania to Texas are stacked with bags whose marketing copy promises a horse that performs better, lives longer, and looks shinier than whatever your horse looks like right now. There's a research division behind nearly every bag. There are veterinarians on retainer. There are barn ambassadors and influencer riders and grain manufacturers' loyalty programs. The Amish are not in any of it. They have not been in any of it for the entire history of the modern American feed industry. They watched the whole thing get built around them, and they kept feeding their horses grass and hay and oats, and they kept watching their horses live to 28, 30, sometimes 35 years old, still working. The average American horse, well cared for and well fed, dies at 19. I want to walk you through why this works. And then I want to be very honest with you about why it might not work for you, because the simple version of this story is the kind of thing that gets repeated as inspiration on the internet, and then somebody decides to drop all their horses' supplements tomorrow morning and their horse founders by Tuesday. The first thing is the grass. An Amish working horse spends roughly 8 to 12 hours a day on pasture, not in a paddock, not in a dirt lot. On living, growing grass, on land that has been managed without commercial fertilizer for generations, that has been rotated with cattle and chickens, that gets manured back from the same horses that eat from it. The grass has minerals in it because the soil has minerals in it. The mineral profile of a properly managed Amish pasture in Lancaster County is not the mineral profile of the dirt paddock behind a suburban barn. It is the difference between a real food and a calorie source. The horse on this grass gets nearly everything he needs: calcium and phosphorus from the forage, magnesium from the deep-rooted plants, trace minerals from the soil, vitamin E from the green leaf. The selenium content depends on where you are in the country, which is why even some Amish farms supplement selenium specifically in low selenium regions like parts of Ohio and the Northeast. But almost everything else the horse gets from the field. The modern horse, by comparison, lives on a half-acre of dirt with a few weeds in it. He gets brought a flake of hay in the morning and a scoop of grain at night. There is nothing in the dirt for him to eat. The grain has to compensate for everything the missing pasture isn't giving him, and the supplements have to compensate for what the grain doesn't have, and the supplements have to compensate for what the supplements don't have. And on it goes. The modern feed pyramid, one bag stacking on top of another, every one of them filling a hole that exists only because the grass is gone. The Amish horse does not need a vitamin supplement because the pasture is the vitamin supplement. The second thing is the hay. When the snow is on the ground or the pasture is brown, Frank gets 20 to 25 pounds of hay a day. The hay is not bought from a feed store. It was cut from a field on the same farm in late June or early August when the grass was at the right stage of maturity. It was raked and turned and stacked by hand. It was put up dry. It was stored in a clean loft. It was inspected by Frank's owner every time he picked up a flake. The hay is Timothy, orchard grass, and a little clover. The protein content is around 10%. The fiber content is high. There is no mold. There is no dust. There is nothing in it that wasn't growing in the field 3 months ago. The Amish know their hay because they made it. They know which field it came from. They know how that field was managed. They know what cuttings it came from because the first cutting is rougher and the second cutting is finer and the third cutting is the rich one they save for the working horses in the heart of plowing season. The horse gets the right hay at the right time of year because the person making decisions about that hay grew it. The modern horse gets hay that came on a truck from a dealer, cut who knows when, stored who knows how, of a variety the owner can identify only roughly. The price has tripled in the last decade. The quality has gone down because the good hay all goes to dairies. The horse eats it because it is in front of him. He gets the calories. He does not always get the nutrition. The grain has to compensate. The supplements have to compensate. And the bill at the feed store keeps going up. The third thing is the oats. This is the one most people are surprised by. The Amish do feed grain. They feed plain whole oats, 3 to 5 pounds a day for a working draft horse, sometimes more during the heaviest plowing weeks in spring and fall, sometimes none at all when the horse is on summer pasture and barely working. The oats are not pre-soaked, they are not pelleted, they are not cracked or steamed or extruded. They are oats. The same oats a horse in 1878, the same oats a horse in 1910 ate, the same oats a horse in 1968. Plain oats are about 12% protein, 12% fiber, and a starch content that is high but digestible because oat starch breaks down in the small intestine the way the horse's body is built to handle it. Compare that to corn, which has nearly double the starch and a starch profile that overruns the small intestine and ferments in the hindgut, which is where most diet-related horse problems start. The Amish horse gets the oats only when his body needs the calories to do the work. Heavy plowing week, he gets more. Light buggy week, he gets less. Summer on pasture, he might get nothing at all. The grain is a tool, not a constant, not a daily ritual, not a guaranteed scoop at 5 in the morning whether the horse worked or not. The horse gets what he needs when he needs it, and the rest of the time he eats grass and hay and gets fat enough to be healthy and not so fat that his metabolism starts to break down. Now, I need to be honest with you about something because the comment section is going to ask, and they deserve a real answer. You cannot just take this system and drop it on top of a modern boarded horse and expect it to work. If your horse lives on a half-acre dirt lot, his pasture is not the same as Frank's pasture. The mineral content of dirt is not the mineral content of grass. If you stop his supplements tomorrow, his selenium might drop, his vitamin E might drop, his copper might drop, and you'll get a horse with a dull coat, a worse hoof, and eventually a more serious problem. That is not because the Amish system is wrong. It is because the Amish system depends on the pasture being real, and your horse's pasture is not real. If your hay comes off a truck and you cannot tell what cutting it is or what field it came from, you do not know what is in it. The Amish know what is in their hay because they grew it. You do not. You may need a ration balancer to fill the gaps. That is not weakness. That is the honest math of the situation you are in. The Amish system works because it is a complete system. The pasture, the hay, the oats, the work, the management, the genetic lines of horses bred for centuries to do exactly this job on exactly this kind of land. Lifting one piece out of it and trying to apply it alone is going to fail. You have to either rebuild the whole system, which means real pasture management, real homegrown forage, real working hours for the horse, and the patience to give it years to come together. Or you have to honestly assess what your horse is actually getting from his environment and supplement what's genuinely missing. What you can take from this video is the principle less is usually more. The horse is built to eat grass and hay. Grain is a tool, not a constant. Supplements should be filling a real hole, not filling a generic shelf in your feed room. And the more your horse's setup looks like the Amish setup, the less you should need to add to compensate. There are American horse owners on small farms in Pennsylvania and Virginia who have been moving in this direction for years. They cut down on the grain. They worked on their pasture, they got their hay tested, they added back only the specific minerals their region was short on. Their feed bills came down by half, their horses got sounder, not sicker, their vet bills dropped. They are not Amish, and they are not trying to be. They just figured out that the Amish were doing something most of the modern industry has spent 100 years pretending was impossible. Frank, this morning in Holmes County, finished his last row of plowing at 10. He stood quietly while the harness came off. He walked back to his pasture and put his head down and started grazing on the grass that had grown back since the last time he was out there. He'll be back in harness this afternoon. He'll do this all spring. He'll be 27 next year. The vet has not seen him since 2020. Now let me show you the fourth thing in that barn, the one I told you about at the start of this video. In a corner of Frank's stall, mounted on a wooden bracket at the height of his nose, there is a white block of plain salt, sodium chloride, the kind that costs $2 at the feed store. He can lick it whenever he wants, and he does several times a day, sometimes more in summer, sometimes less in winter. Nobody tells him how much. He decides. The reason the Amish do not call this feed is that they did not put it there to nourish the horse. They put it there to let the horse balance himself. A horse loses sodium through sweat, especially a working horse in July, and the body needs that sodium replaced. The pasture has some sodium in it, but rarely enough for a hard-working horse. So the salt block hangs in the corner, and the horse takes what he needs when he needs it without anyone deciding for him. What the Amish do not buy is the mineral block, the brown or red one at Tractor Supply with selenium and copper and zinc and 12 other things stamped on the bag. They use plain white salt because they trust the pasture to provide the rest. In a low selenium region, occasionally a family will add a small selenium supplement on a vet's specific recommendation. Otherwise, the salt is the only thing. One block, $2, lasts a draft horse about 3 months. That is the entire system. Pasture, hay, oats when working, and in the corner of the stall, a white block of salt the horse manages on his own. 4 things if you want to be strict. The Amish would tell you it is 3 because the salt is not feeding the horse. It is letting the horse take care of himself. There's a story the modern horse industry tells you about why your horse is the way he is. Genetics, they say. Inevitability, they say. Modern conditions, modern stress, modern lifespans. The Amish have been quietly proving that story wrong since before the industry existed. 3 things in the bucket: a white block in the corner, a real field to walk on, the work the body was built for, and a horse that lives to be older than the people who first put him in harness. The next video I'm putting together is the one about the oats specifically. There's a difference between the oats an Amish farmer buys and the oats you can buy at Tractor Supply, and the difference is not the price. It's the moisture content, the storage method, and one specific test an Amish farmer does in his hand before he ever feeds them to a horse. I'll see you there.